Alright guys, this is Chatterbox Reviews. Coming to you guys my review for the pilot episode of the new series, Dr. Odyssey. Alright, so one of the biggest new shows this fall is finally here with Dr. Odyssey, perhaps the biggest show in terms of, at least from what I've seen, the marketing, the advertising, a lot of buzz around the trailer that came out as well, or the teaser that I've seen. So maybe it could just be me, but I've heard from a lot of other people, that were looking forward to this. And of course, with a name like Ryan Murphy attached to this, a huge, huge name in TV the last, decade or 2 decades, really. He wrote this, created the show with a couple others. So yeah, big show for this fall, and it's finally here. I was looking forward to this show. I'm not a huge network TV guy anymore. Several years ago, I used to watch a number of network TV shows, and I did a video on this topic just recently, a few months ago, where I kind of discussed this. How I think network TV has really kind of fallen off. And really been, it's just a lot of the same, right? The unique shows that we used to get on network TV just aren't really there anymore. And now it's kind of become the streaming services, right? And places like FX and AMC, AMC maybe less so now with all just their Walking Dead stuff, but over the years, they've kind of, remained prominent, and network TV has really fallen off. And this was actually a show that I saw that was like, okay, this is kind of unique. And Ryan Murphy coming to this too. Obviously, he's, been with network TV for quite a long time, something like Glee, obviously. But it does look like he's bringing kind of a fresh take to this, and so I was really interested to see this pilot and to share my thoughts now that I've seen it. So love to hear from you guys if you've watched this pilot. If you have not, I am gonna talk about just a couple basic things that happen in the episode, but nothing too spoilery or anything like that. So you should be able to stick around for this review even if you haven't seen it. But if you have, really like to hear what you guys thought of this episode. From what I've seen so far, has been kind of leaning negative. But yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. And if you enjoyed this review, please have a like and consider subscribing to the channel as well. Would really appreciate that. And, depending how I go, with the show, if I watch some more episodes, I might be covering more episodes on the channel. So if you're interested in that, definitely subscribe, stay tuned for those as well. So anyways, this pilot episode is directed by Paris Barkley, and he has been in TV for a long time. I think he is friends with Ryan Murphy, or at least has worked, alongside him on a lot of shows. But just recently he did Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer series with Evan Peters there. He did a couple episodes there, but yeah, he's in his late 60s, I think, and he's been around for a long time and directed a lot of TV episodes, and some really good ones that I saw. He did some really great episodes of The Shield, and a couple other shows stuck out to me. But yeah, recently he's done The Monster, and of course another Ryan Murphy product there. So no surprise there. So yeah, kind of a veteran director here taking on this pilot. And I'll get to the direction in just a little bit when I share my overall thoughts. But anyways, so the show is created, and this pilot is written by Ryan Murphy, John Robin Bates, and Joe Bacon. And I'm not really familiar that much with those other 2 names. Of course, Ryan Murphy's the big fish here, but they also come along, with this to write it. And I am really curious to see actually how much involvement Ryan Murphy had with these scripts. He's like one of the busiest guys. Maybe him and Taylor Sheridan, right, are 2 of the busiest guys in TV, or maybe even in media in general, movies or TV. Just like always working, always developing new shows and all this stuff. And so I do kind of wonder how much input Ryan Murphy actually had in the writing of this, or if he's maybe just attaching his name to get the attention and to help these other writers, who he's worked with before, by the way. When I look into it, these guys have worked with each other before, so maybe he's trying to help out his friends. So I don't know. I will say, though, I think in this pilot episode, you can see some things that are very similar to other Ryan Murphy projects. So you could maybe surmise that he is involved at least somewhat in this pilot and in the rest of the show. These three actually write the first 3 episodes of this first season for Dr. Odyssey. So interesting to see. The next 2 episodes will probably be in the same vein, I would think, to this pilot episode with them 3 around. Okay, so the synopsis here for this pilot is Dr. Max Bankman, who is played by Joshua Jackson, of course, the star, is hired to be the new doctor on board the luxury cruise ship called the Odyssey, and, kind of meets his new team, which is just 2 other people, actually. So it's a team of 3 total that are, responsible for the safety of the passengers while on board the cruise. And so that's kind of where we start, right? He is introduced in the first few minutes of the pilot. He comes on board. Literally in this, he comes on board the ship, and then we kind of go from there with this pilot. We do see quite a few cases, in this episode as well. So we start dealing with that. So yeah, interesting premise here, and that's kind of where we start off with this pilot episode. So now, in terms of my overall thoughts, and like I said, very light spoilers here. So if you haven't seen it, feel free to stick around. Okay, so I just want to start off with the concept here and talk about that. I think this is a relatively unique concept. I want to put it like that because nothing mind-blowing here, right? It is a medical drama, though I will get to a little bit later. I think there are some kind of differences with this and typical medical dramas. But it is there, it's still a medical drama at the heart of it. It's on a cruise ship, right? So it adds just kind of a little bit of uniqueness or a little bit of freshness to this take. And just kind of reinvents a little bit, I would say, maybe the subgenre of the medical drama, at least on network TV, right? And so with the cruise centered, the setting of the cruise, you're getting a lot of these. And like, I really... It kind of did exceed my expectations in terms of, the way that they use the cruise setting to actually influence the type of medical cases and emergencies that they are dealing with here. And not all of them were, cruise-centric in this episode, but I think 2, I think they've had like about 4 cases already in this pilot. I think 2 of them, I want to say, or at least the very first one with the shrimp, right? That seemed like a very cruise-centered thing where that doesn't usually happen, at all in general, but just doesn't usually happen in a normal hospital setting, right? This is something that would be very much, almost exclusive to a cruise ship, setting, and this is something that would happen there. So with that, we get these medical cases that are really kind of, like I said, exclusive to the cruise and the environment that they are in on a ship, so really far away from any land, right? They're in the middle of the ocean. And then the setting of the cruise ship, it goes beyond just the medical cases because it also is kind of isolating all of these characters and all of the kind of plot that's going on to literally on the ship. Like I just said, they are, miles away from any type of land, usually, right? And so, they're isolated. They can't really get off the ship or go anywhere. And so that really kind of adds a little bit of freshness to it where, and I'm not an expert on medical dramas at all. I'm not a huge fan. I've seen, obviously episodes of Grey's Anatomy and stuff like that just here and there. But to me, this does feel a little unique because in most medical dramas, or at least from some of the stuff that I've seen, it does seem like there's a bit of that family drama or that kind of plot that happens outside the hospital, right, or outside the medical cases, and it doesn't seem like we're going to really get much of that because it's this isolated setting of the ship and these characters don't have, they're not going home, right? They're not going home to a family or their kids or stuff that's happening in their personal lives. Their personal lives are what is, the plot of the show. Like, it's kind of one and the same, is what I'm trying to say. It's a very isolated setting. And so it brings this kind of uniqueness and freshness to the medical drama because of the setting of the cruise ship, the isolation, but then also the types of medical cases that come, about because they're on the cruise ship. So I think in both ways, it does add some uniqueness to it. And I'll touch on this a little later, but I think that could also be a negative to some people because, yes, it's unique and fresh, and to me, that's a positive, right? For a type of subgenre that, to me, just too often is very just treading the same stuff, kind of beating a dead horse with a lot of the stuff that, typical medical dramas do. But it also could be a negative because I think some people, including myself, at times I like it. But that stuff outside the hospital or the personal life drama and that stuff is also good. So I'm wondering, maybe some people might miss that in the show, or maybe they might try to incorporate more of that as the show goes on. But at least from what this pilot episode has to offer, it doesn't seem like there's much of that. Of course, there is kind of the drama with, relationships and all that stuff developing, which I'll get to. But it just doesn't seem like, we're going to have a drawn out divorce subplot for a season. Right, or their kid is misbehaving at school, or something like a subplot like that. Right, it doesn't seem like we're going to have something like that, which is seen in a lot of more traditional medical dramas. So take that as you will. The setting definitely affects what kind of material and what we're going for here in this episode, which I think, like I said, can be a positive to some, like me, but also a negative to others, right? So I want to talk, obviously, about the cast, starting with Joshua Jackson here. I think he really carries this pilot episode. His laid-back yet charismatic performance fits the script, I would almost say perfectly. Like, just the way this character is written in the script, he needs to be laid back, right? Because he doesn't have a huge personality, but he also needs to be charismatic, right? Because otherwise, it's just the completely kind of lifeless, empty character. And, we get some backstory as well as to maybe, why he's like that. In this pilot episode with his struggles with COVID, and what happened there, what his diagnosis was and what he suffered through during that time. But yeah, he's just very laid back and very kind of, disconnected, I would say, as right when we meet him, right? That's just kind of how he seems. But he is charismatic still, and you do still like him, and you still kind of get, and of course, some scenes he does the little dancing, scene as well. And so he gets out of his shell a little bit, right? And, they're kind of pulling on that archetype of, he's kind of stuck in his shell, doesn't want to have any fun, that kind of thing, until later in the episode. But yeah, I think his charisma, really carries that performance because it does kind of elevate that in terms of, otherwise it's just kind of this laid-back character and you don't really care enough about him. But he does have that charisma. So I think it really fits the script very well. I think it's a perfect, portrayal of this type of character that they're going for. So really great. And I've seen early episodes of The Fringe, or is it just called Fringe, I guess? But I've seen early episodes, just the first few episodes of season 1, I think. I covered the pilot actually on the channel here just a few months ago. And I think he's better here than what I saw in The Fringe, in Fringe, sorry. Obviously, he was a lot younger. That was, 2007 or 2009 or something like that. So we're talking, 15 years ago or so. I think he was in his 20s at that time, or maybe early 30s, but I think he does have more charisma here. I do like him better in this pilot episode than, early, stuff of Fringe. I'm sure he improved as well. But yeah, so I think, that would be the biggest project, that he's done before this coming into, Dr. Odyssey. And so, I think he's even better than what I've seen in that show, at least just from what I've seen, right? Philippa Sue as well. I know some people are fans of her. I'm not really familiar with anything that she's done, but I thought she was good. Sean Teal as well. Pretty good. I mean, he doesn't have the name, really as much as Philippa Sue and Joshua Jackson, but I thought he was okay. I thought he played the part really well for this first episode. Again, kind of all these characters are pretty much archetypes. Nothing too unique about any of these characters, but I think he does a good job. And then Don Johnson is good, and I'm really kind of shocked that he is in this episode and that he's in this new network TV show. Very strange to me, but I'm okay with it. I do like Don Johnson. His acting. I think he's been had a great career, great legacy in terms of the acting. So yeah, just interesting to see him here, I guess. I feel like they just could have got someone not with as big of a name, that could have been could have done this performance. He doesn't get a lot to do in this pilot episode, but I thought he was good. Good with what he had to do for sure. So I do want to get to this, and this is not really about this episode, more maybe about network TV in general. But can we just talk about the look of this pilot episode? I don't know. Like, the directing to me was just painfully basic. I said I would touch on this, as I went on here. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense though when you look into Paris Barkley. He's done so much TV, especially a lot of older stuff in the 90s and I think 80s too, even if he's in his late 60s, right? He's worked for a long time, and it just doesn't seem like there's anything new here to be seen. It's just very basic, but it's network TV as well. You're not expecting, a reinvention of the wheel or anything like that, but it was just very basic to me. And then also, just everything, and I guess this is just like a common trend now, and this is victim to it as well, but everything just looks so hyper realistic. Like, it's taking, like, I would pause the episode at times and look at it, and it just looks like it's taking place in front of a green screen, but it's not, I don't think, like, unless, like, the majority of the episode is taking place over a green screen, like, I don't think it is. Like, I think they're on a set, it looks like there's extras in the background, but maybe it's just me as well, maybe I'm just not used to network TV, but not even just network TV, like, this is other shows, too, that are on right now in the last few years. Maybe it's just because these cameras, like, they're shooting in 4K and the cameras are just, like, so good now that it does look like this. And maybe it's just, like, every, frame is just effects heavy, right? They're just, like, overdoing it on the effects and making, everybody's, face look perfect and everything. It just looks, like, too perfect to me. It looks like everything is taking place on this green screen, like the characters aren't in the backgrounds that they're filming in. I don't know. It just looks very strange to me. And same with the dialogue. When actors are speaking in this, it seems like almost every, or at least in the beginning sequence of the episode especially, it seems like every piece of dialogue is just a voiceover. Like, it doesn't sound like they're speaking in the setting that we're seeing them in. I don't know. Maybe this is just nitpicky and I'm going too far into things, but it's just, I don't know. Like I said, it's not just this show. It's a lot of other network TV and even other shows that are on streaming services now and everything. Maybe it is. It's just the cameras these days are just way too good and it's just like hyper realistic. Too much effects work. I don't know exactly what it is. Probably a mixture of a bunch of things, but yeah, just strange to me. Like, it just doesn't look appealing to the eye. Or I guess it does. It almost looks too appealing. Maybe that's the issue. It's too appealing to the eye where it just looks perfect. And it's just a little kind of unsettling to me. But anyways, that could just be me. But like I said, it's a typical network TV, and this is no exception. It just looks and feels very fake and very, this like kind of, yeah, like hyper realistic, but in a bad way, right? Like, it's not a good thing. So anyways, those are my thoughts on, what this pilot episode looked like. But of course, I got past that. I think the second half of the episode is better. I think when they're in smaller settings, it does look better. It doesn't look as bad, but stuff like the opening sequence to the episode, it's just so, it really takes you back. But anyways, so I also want to talk about this. This is, and I've seen a few comments on this as well, early reactions to this pilot, and I agree. There is an insane amount of sexual subject matter in this pilot episode. Like, I don't know. I really think, genuinely, I do think it could turn some people off of this show and this pilot episode. Like, I don't want to go too much into spoilers, but, there's like almost every other scene is, couples and they are on a cruise ship. Like, I guess you could say, okay, well, obviously couples go on the cruise ships and, this is a good time for sex and relationship and, romantic and all that stuff. Okay. But I don't know, there just seems to be too many, like even the one case is that a guy, fractures his penis, what else? This couple's about to have sex on the deck of the ship and then he falls all overboard. That's something that happens. what else? A lot of jokes, like just a lot of sexual jokes back and forth between, the characters, a lot of dialogue like that. So it's just like very sexual, like hypersexual. And this is, I guess, where Ryan Murphy comes in, because I think you see this in some of his shows. And then you also see it in the melodramatic, romance kind of relationship stuff. And there was tons of that here as well. So it's just very sexual, very romantic. And a lot of this stuff is just filled, into this pilot episode. And that's kind of my question is, like, maybe this would have been better on Hulu or FX rather than a network show. Because like I said, like, I think this amount of, and I've already seen comments about it, this amount of sexual subject matter and references and all this could be a little off-putting to network TV audiences. And so I wonder if maybe this could have been better on something like a Hulu or FX, like I said, and just, and then they go for it. And, and then they maybe, I don't know about nudity on Hulu. Maybe they do have that, probably not on FX. But anyways, maybe not nudity, but just commit then. If you want to make this more of like a sexualized, medical drama, maybe commit to that, in something like that where, audiences are a little bit more receptive to that. But yeah, it was just a little, shocking to me. I don't really have a problem with it, but just a little shocking to me how much there is in this episode. And then if you want to talk about the relationship stuff, I mean, like two of the characters, Joshua Jackson's character and Philippa Sue's character in this episode, again, not going to spoil too much, but, they kind of engage in something and they just met. Like, they do acknowledge in the episode, yeah, like, we just met and we're doing this. This is wrong. And so, fair enough. But it is, and even they already set up this love triangle and, this, one of the main motivations for Sean Teal's character is to get with Philippa Sue. So it's like everybody's driven by sex and relationships in this episode. It's just a little too much. But anyways, it is Ryan Murphy after all. If you're a Ryan Murphy fan, and I'm not saying that's all he does. He's good at a lot of things, and there's a lot of themes that are in a lot of his shows, but this is one of them, I would say. And so, if you're a fan of Ryan Murphy, yeah, you might like that kind of, touch to this, but I do think, on the same note, some people could be turned off by that. So fair warning if you haven't seen the episode. And if you're not interested so much in that stuff, then it might be a little much for you. But anyways, that's what it is. But yeah, something I had to look, comment on, because I've already seen some people commenting on it, and I definitely agree with that. Yeah, some of the relationship stuff just a little too soon and just too much of it in terms of, just one pilot episode. Where they go from here as well, like with this love triangle that they set up, like, wow. I mean, how farther could they go in terms of all that stuff after this pilot? I don't know. We'll have to see, going forward. But overall, I do want to kind of end here then with saying it did exceed my expectations. I did laugh 2 or 3 times, or three, 4 times, whatever, a few times, throughout this episode. And I can't say that about most network TV shows these days. They do seem very bland, and like I said, just kind of beating a dead horse, at least to me. But I did get some laughs out of this. I thought there were actually, and a couple of them kind of came at, times of the kind of sexual stuff. But yeah, I thought a couple, good moments, kind of good jokes in there, comedic relief at times. And I was not expecting that, out of a show like this. And I think it comes from Joshua Jackson's charisma. Like I said, I think he really just brings something extra to that role. And it served as a good preview of the more unique types of medical cases they're dealing with, which was something I wasn't expecting either. I really thought this would be like literally a medical drama, but on a cruise ship, right? But it actually, like, they do make use of the setting of the cruise ship because, like I said, the whole shrimp thing at the very beginning of the episode is very, centered around, yeah, they're on a cruise ship, and this is something that would pretty much only happen on a cruise ship. And I didn't necessarily expect that. I thought, like I said, literally it would just be the typical medical stuff, but on a cruise ship. And so, yeah, they do really use that setting. And again, we'll see if that's a positive or a negative. But to me, I thought that was a positive of this episode, that it did feel a little bit more fresh than what I was actually expecting, and kind of opened my eyes to think like, yeah, there are quite a few things that may happen on a cruise ship, that you might not see, in a typical hospital or, other setting. And so maybe they can really dive into that in this episode. Now, there are other things that happen in the episode, other medical cases. I believe like one of them mainly is something that, a normal hospital would deal with. So it's not going to be all cases, I'm sure, that are just exclusive to cruises. But if they can really utilize that and make use of the setting, I think that could actually be a really, good direction for the show and keep it a little bit more fresh compared to other medical dramas. So yeah, overall exceeded my expectations in that department. I didn't, think it was too long, really. I think it kind of went by. And so as a pilot episode, I have to give it some credit, in terms of that. So just to end then, anyone who's looking for a fresher, more buoyant medical drama, no pun intended, but kind of intended. So a fresher, more buoyant medical drama could really enjoy this. I think they would. Someone like me who is kind of seeking a more fresher take on a medical drama in terms of network TV these days, I like I said, exceeded my expectations. I don't know. Would I say I enjoyed this? I guess I enjoyed it, right, for what it is. For what it is, I enjoyed it. And so I think people who are used to maybe more traditional medical dramas on network TV or any, TV, and are kind of seeking something new, I think you could really, really enjoy this and really get into it. And then on the other side of the token, those who like the more traditional medical dramas, and you're not tired of that because you love it, and you love the way that those shows operate. You like being, the familiarness of it, or you like knowing what to expect from the shows. You may be turned off by this. I will say that, and not just the sexual nature of it and all that stuff, but yeah, there is a bit more. Like I said, kind of it's a little bit more buoyant. It's not, it doesn't, at least in this pilot episode, there's nothing that is like really dead serious about this, like some medical dramas. And like I said, there's not as much of that personal life drama or the kind of stuff like that I think a lot of people gravitate towards medical dramas for. And so because of those couple things, I think, fans of more traditional medical dramas may be turned off by this. But like I said, if you're looking for a fresher take, or, you're at least, willing to kind of give it a shot and give it, a chance to see something new, I think you might really like this. So that'll do it. Those are all my thoughts then, and my kind of recommendation there at the end, to those who haven't seen it, or if you've seen the pilot episode, maybe you might want to stick around. So, thank you guys so much for watching this one then. And like I said off the top, we'll, maybe do some more episode reviews. If I watch a few more episodes, I might talk about them on the channel here. So stay tuned, subscribe if you're, interested in seeing those at all. And I'll have more reviews out for some other shows coming up here very shortly, including a couple other network shows. So yeah, stay tuned on the channel for those as well. But anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching this one, and we'll see you then in my next review.